the Supreme Court first, just to unpack that a little bit. As I think many of you know, I do the Supreme Court focused podcast with Michael Popak on the Legal AF show. And so we've been talking about the voting rights case quite a bit. This was not a surprise because this case actually came up the last term, and they decided to hold it over to this term to specifically look at whether or not Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act was a violation under the Equal Protection Act. And Clarence Thomas himself telegraphed over the summer that he thought he had the votes to essentially gut the Voting Rights Act. That is essentially what happened today. The Voting Rights Act has been the last remaining section that was of any useful enforcement tool was gutted today. So just to unpack that a little bit, as we know, the Civil Rights Act was passed as part of the landmark civil rights legislation in order to protect the voting rights of Black voters in particular, to not have their votes be disenfranchised how it had been over so many years. And so the Section 2 had said that if you exactly actually what happened in Louisiana after the 2020 census, they drew their map in a way that there was only one majority minority district, despite the fact that the census showed the population of Black voters there was 1/3. And so they were forced to draw a second district that was majority minority in order to reflect accurately how the population of the votes, because obviously if you draw in a certain way, you're going to disenfranchise certain voters. And that was under the Voting Rights Act required. It was law. The Supreme Court just ruled today that essentially the Voting Rights Act, which was meant to prevent racial discrimination in voting, is now illegal or actually unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause because it considers race. And if that sounds confusing, it is because they definitely used a circular argument there. They basically said because this was a race-based, that they used race in drawing these maps, they had to withstand strict scrutiny, and it did not. Stunning decision that was telegraphed by Justice Clarence Thomas, because over the summer, when the Supreme Court decided not to issue a ruling, but instead hold it over to this term with the specific question of whether or not it was a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, Justice Thomas wrote kind of a concurring opinion saying that he disagreed with the fact that it should be held over. The fact that he wanted the Supreme Court to issue the decision right away, to me, immediately signaled that he thought he had the votes to basically do what happened today, to declare it unconstitutional. Because Justice Clarence Thomas, for years, has said he thought that it was a violation of the Equal Protection Clause.